Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kate Brandis. I'm an account manager with Secure Video, and I'm joined today by a couple of my co-panelists. I have Sabrina Smith with me, my fellow account manager. Sabrina, let me make sure we can get your video going here.
Thank you. Hi,
Yeah,
everybody.
sure. There we go. And then Michelle Dong, our Director of Operations, who also heads up our support team. Michelle is going to help us field questions today and just kind of go through some of the maybe more technical answers if we come across anything. But thanks for joining us, Michelle. And thanks to all of you for being with us, taking the time to join us for this next in our series of customer education webinars. We will be, of course, recording today, and we'll send this out for anyone who wasn't able to join us. But today we're going to be talking about scheduling tips and tricks. So whether you are new to Secure Video and just hoping to get a better sense for some of the different configuration options that you have to make the scheduling process a little easier, or whether you may have used Secure Video for a really long time, we're confident that you hopefully will come away from today with something that you were not familiar with before, maybe learning something new. And we do encourage audience participation, so we'd love to hear your questions as we go along. You can use the Q&A feature in Zoom to send your questions through chat. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. For the agenda for today, the topics that we're going to be covering are: one, useful options that you may have missed. Secure Video has grown and grown in its number of options that we offer. So we'll go through some of those that can be especially helpful for the scheduling process. We're going to talk about using account services. This is a feature in Secure Video that Sabrina will go into some more detail about soon. Some best practices particularly when scheduling for group sessions, or for if you're using recurrence, so you have recurring sessions. We'll have some discussion of session-specific features. So within your session in Secure Video, some of the different features and tools that you have for your use. And then we're going to talk about syncing a calendar, a relatively new feature for Secure Video. We are going to leave time at the end for Q&A. So type your questions as we go along. At the end, we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. And if we have some time, Sabrina and I can stay on a little longer just to help get as many of those questions addressed as we can. All right, and again, just a reminder, after the webinar, the recording link will be sent via email. We'll send a little follow-up message, and you'll have a link to view this later if you need to go back and refer to anything that we covered. But also just remember that our support team is here to help. We love to help our customers use Secure Video in the best way possible. So if you see something today that prompts a thought in your mind about how your organization can use Secure Video, maybe need a little help getting the configuration just right, please reach out to us. We really do love to engage with our customers and help them make the best use of the platform. To start off, we're going to ask the audience. We have a little poll we'd like to share with you just to kind of get everybody engaged and thinking as we start talking about this scheduling conversation. I'm going to launch a poll here. You'll see it pop up on your screen. And a couple of the questions we want to ask you is, number one, are you currently scheduling any sessions with multiple participants in your practice? So this could be, a session that you have with a couple different family members in different locations, or it could be a larger group session where you're having, lots and lots of participants joining in the same group. And the second question is, we're curious, have you ever had the need to include an interpreter in your telehealth sessions? So we'll cover a little bit more about that later, but just curious, for those of you who would join today, where you kind of stand on interpretation services. So if you will, just take a moment and answer the questions, and then I'll share the results with everybody before we go forward. All right, I think everybody's about gotten a chance to answer. I'll go ahead and end the poll. And let's take a look at our results. So we should see on your screen, you should see the results of the poll. We have about 59% saying yes, they use multiple participants in a session. That's about what we expected, a majority there. But a solid 41% of you looks like just doing individual sessions one-on-one. And then down in the interpreter services, 71% saying they have not had a need to include an interpreter yet in telehealth sessions, and about 30%, 29% saying they have. So thanks for filling in on that. Appreciate the answers there. All right. So to get started in our topics today, First, we're going to go into the options and settings. So to start with that, the main thing I wanted to point out first is it's really important to know what your role is in Secure Video. For our attendees today, we have some people who have the account administrator role, meaning you own all of the account configurations. You're the main user on the account. If you are an individual user for Secure Video, then you have the account administrator role. But with some organizations that have multiple users, we do have people in the host role or the scheduler role. So what you may see today as we go through some of these options is that you may not have access to some of the settings that we discuss. If that is the case, for example, if you click on your profile icon and you see that you have My Options, but not Account Options, it just means that within your organization, there's someone else that's the account administrator, so you would need to get them involved if you wanted to make any changes to the configuration for your account. So if there's, again, something we talk about today and you're not seeing it in your account, don't despair. It's probably just a situation where you may not have the permission to access that setting. The other thing I wanted to note was the settings. I mentioned the options have really grown and grown in Secure Video, and they're broken down into different sections. But I wanted to share with you a little quick find tip. So as you're going through the options and looking for the one that you want to adjust, there's a quick keyboard trick that Sabrina and I use regularly just to find the right option that we're looking for. So I'll share that with you too. So I'm going to launch into my demo account here. I have my East Coast Medicine account. We have Dr. Ellie Coates as the provider here, and Ellie Coates is the administrator for this account. So first, before I go into the options section, I just want to point out on the dashboard here, you may notice, and you're probably all familiar with the way this appears, but you have all of your telehealth sessions as you scroll down the page in chronological order. By default in Secure Video, these buttons for new session now, new scheduled session, or even masked call if you're using this feature are located down here at the bottom of your screen. So they're underneath all of your telehealth sessions. The first option that we wanted to point out to you today is actually here in Account Options. It's the option to configure these buttons so that they appear at the top of the dashboard instead of at the bottom. So if you would prefer to have all of your telehealth sessions start below those buttons, I'll show you how to make that adjustment. So you just go to Account Options here. You're going to go to the Navigation and Access section here. And you're going to look for this one. It says Show New Session Buttons at the top of the dashboard. So you'll see all I have to do for my account is change this to yes. And then if I click video conference again to go back to my dashboard, now I have those scheduling buttons here at the top of the dashboard. So that's the first setting we wanted to point out today. Next is going to be in the next section of it is the scheduling section of your options. Before I go into that, I just want to point out when you click new scheduled session on the account, of course, you're going to select your date and time. Let's say we're planning a session for the 15th. If I click the time button, you'll see that by default in Secure Video, all of the options for the time for your session are based on 15-minute intervals. So we can schedule a session starting at 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, et cetera. Some practices, though, that we've spoken with, they want to get a little bit more specific on the times that they schedule the sessions. So what you can do is change that, what we call scheduling interval, where if you change that to, say, 5 minutes instead of 15 minutes, you would then have the ability to schedule at 9:05, 9:10, 9:15, 9:20, and so on. So if your practice wanted to get a little more specific about the times and change that, you would go into, again, Account Options. And this one is in the scheduling section. And we're going to look for the setting that's called scheduling interval. It's here. So scheduling interval minutes, you can see by default it's set to 15 minutes. But if I were to change that drop down to 5 minutes, then if I were to go back and schedule a new scheduled session, you'll see the time now all of a sudden offers me all those options for every 5 minutes. All right. Next, we want to talk about the default duration of your sessions. So in Secure Video, by default, when you schedule a session, it is going to plan for 60 minutes for that session. That's just the typical, it's planning for an hour. A lot of practices that we've talked to have different times or different default times for their sessions. So for example, if your typical telehealth session is, say, 30 minutes and not 60, you may want to go in and change that default duration. And the reason that's beneficial is if you use the Add to Calendar feature, or if your participant uses Add to Calendar, it is going to set it on their calendar at that appropriate duration so that they don't misunderstand how long that this telehealth session is going to last. So if I go into account options again, in the scheduling part, here, this is a good opportunity for me to show you the keyboard trick. Rather than scrolling down and searching for the setting I'm going to look for, I'm going to hit Control F on my screen, and you'll see I have up here a search bar, and I'm just going to start typing in default duration. And it's going to automatically take me to that setting that I want to make an adjustment for. So if you're trying to find something real quickly within the settings, if you're on a PC, you can use Control F. If you're on a Mac, you can use Command K to bring up that search bar and search for the right option. So this is the one I was talking about, default duration for meetings. So again, by default, meetings are duration of 60 minutes. But if you want to change that to 30 minutes for your account, you just change that to the correct amount of minutes. Then you'll see on the dashboard, if I go in and use add to calendar, and let's say Google Calendar, I use a Google Calendar, it's going to automatically pull in that 30-minute time frame. So here's my session from 9 to 9:30. All right, we've gone over quite a few here in this first few minutes. Michelle, any questions that have come in so far? Doesn't look like it.
Oh, none so far.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, again, if you have any questions about anything we're covering, just type them into the Q&A within the webinar, and we'll get to questions as we can. All right, the next section we want to cover within the options is the notifications section, and there are a couple in here I wanted to point out. The first is the meeting RSVP functionality. So as you're seeing my dashboard here, you're seeing that all my telehealth sessions have RSVP confirmed, no RSVP yet. You're probably all pretty familiar with the RSVP function in Secure Video, and it's helpful because you can see good confirmation that your participants have gotten the invitation and they're planning on attending. But one of the things we've realized in talking to some of our customers is that participants may use this decline RSVP option, and it may they may be thinking that that's a proper cancellation of a session, where you may have in your practice a different cancellation policy, for example, where they need to cancel 24 hours in advance and so forth. So we do offer the option to disable the RSVP function entirely if your organization would prefer to do that. So to do that, you just go into account options, go to notifications, and it's this setting, enable meeting RSVPs. So if I change this from yes to no, you'll notice right away on the dashboard, I'm no longer going to see what the RSVP status is of all of my participants. However, they're also not going to receive it in their emailed invitations and reminders or their text invitations. They won't have the opportunity to RSVP. That way, it sort of prevents them from again, using the no and RSVPing no and thinking that that's a proper cancellation for you. All right, looks like we had a question pop up in the chat. I have patients that need to be scheduled for different durations. For example, one patient may be scheduled for 30 minutes, whereas another patient scheduled for 90 minutes. That is a great question, and I will be happy to pass it over to Sabrina for the next section, and she'll dig into that a little more. I do have one more feature, though, that I want to point out before we move on from options. So I'm going to go back into account options. Probably many of you are aware that Secure Video automatically sends out 2 reminders ahead of each session. The first reminder by default goes out 2 hours prior to your session starting, and the second one goes out 10 minutes prior. But Secure Video does offer the option to change the schedule by which these go out. So if, for example, you wanted to go in and change it and have the first reminder go out 24 hours prior and the second reminder go out 60 minutes prior, you can configure that in your options. So you would just go in here to notifications. Again, I'm going to use Control F to try to find it real quick. And I'm looking for first reminder. Here's the option here. It's first reminder to session participants. So again, by default, 120 minutes, it's going to go out prior. We could change this to 24 hours prior, which just happens to be 1440 minutes. And then the second one, we could just change this to 60 minutes prior. So for you account administrators that are managing an account with lots of multiple users, just keep in mind when you're changing this in the account options, you're changing it for the whole organization. But over here, you have this option to allow users to override yes or no. So if you would like each user to have the ability to configure their own reminder schedule, you can change this to yes, and that allows your users to override it in their own options and make it whatever schedule suits them. All right, the other thing I want to point out about reminders is for any of these, you can just go ahead and change that to 0 if you wanted to just prevent this reminder from going out entirely. So if you would rather your participants not receive 2 reminders, you can change either the first or second one to 0. All right. We are going to continue on now. I'm going to pass it over to Sabrina, and she is going to talk to you a little bit about account services. Yes.
Right. Okay, so what we're covering today regarding account services is why is this feature beneficial and how to set it up. So I'm about to share my screen here in 1 second. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen. So why is this feature beneficial? Account services is beneficial, as the question came in, if you have participants that you want to schedule for different times, different durations than your default duration. So you can schedule them with a different account service, or you using payments through PayPal or Stripe through Secure Video, then you can also add the amount of the payment. So I'm about to show you. You click the profile icon here, go down to account services. I would like to point out here that only as an account administrator, you can add a new account service. Then here's a couple of different services we have set up on our demo account. I will create a new service now. We call this first initial consultation. Then you can add a brief description of it, payment amount. I'm adding 0 here because we do not have payments set up on our test account. Scheduling duration. For here, I will use 15 minutes. So if your regular sessions by default or 30 minutes or 60 minutes, you now have an account service that you can use for 15 minutes, for example. Then we go to the dashboard. I would also like to point out, if you have an account service set up for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, it will not cut off after this time. So we create a new session here. Then you can add here the participant name as always. No invitation for this. And here on the bottom left corner, you see click here to specify a service. So then you can scroll to all of your services. I've just set it up first initial consultation and save. And you will see it here also when you add it to your calendar, it will appear as 15 minutes on your calendar, for example, and not as 60 minutes or whatever the duration is. All right. Any other questions to account services?
Let's see if we've had any others. I think that's it for now.
Okay. That's good. Then I will stop sharing here.
Okay. Thank you, Sabrina. All right, continuing on. Next, we're going to talk about some best practices for both groups and recurring sessions. So many of you responded that you are scheduling using groups. So we're going to hopefully show you a couple of tricks here that make it a little bit easier for that. I will again pull up my screen. The first thing to point out is that we do offer the ability to create a contact group. So you know how to schedule a session, you know how to use the add participant button to add the next person and so on. But you can now schedule with a whole group in Secure Video by going up here into your profile icon menu and going into My Contacts. You can see here, these are all the contacts that I have ever invited to a telehealth session through this account. So I've got all my contacts here, but now you can click Manage Contact Groups. And here you can create a new group and just add whoever you would like to add from your contacts list into a group. So it makes it very easy to schedule for an entire group. So if I click Edit, I can go in here and see, you can set your group name, you can add a description if you'd like to, and then here are all the members of my group. So to add someone to the group, you would just simply go into Add Contact, just start typing a name, and let's add Ryan Reynolds to my group here. So we can manage it using this Add Contacts. So on your contact group list, now that you have this created, when you go to your telehealth dashboard, click New Scheduled Session and set up your next telehealth session. Let's say we're going to do this one for tomorrow at 8 a.m. What you would do here is, instead of typing a participant name, you would just start typing in the name of the group that you had already created. So if I start typing in even the letter A, it's going to go ahead and pull in and try to suggest which group that I should add. So if I add this anxiety and depression support group and click save, what happens next is everybody automatically gets pulled into the session as part of that group. So that's a real quick and easy way to just, rather than adding participants one at a time for a large group, you can add them all at once just by managing that contact group. The other thing I'll point out is if you have a group like this, and let's say towards the end of the meeting, you're deciding when you're going to see them again, and you want to go ahead and schedule the next visit, you can go into this Manage button and use the Schedule Next feature. And this will allow you to just go ahead and pull in the date and time of the next session using this same group of participants. So if we decide the next session we're going to have is going to be, let's say, on April 1st at, we'll pick a different time, 10 a.m. When I click Go Now, it's going to go ahead and create that next session for me, pulling in all these same participants. So that's a real easy way if you already have a session with a group to go ahead and schedule the next group. And then the next trick we wanted to point out was recurrence. So I'm going to take this appointment here with Han Solo and use him as an example. We have a session scheduled for Friday the 10th. Let's say that this is something that we're going to be meeting on a regular recurring basis every Friday. Well, rather than recreating a session every Friday for Han Solo, what you can do is go into the Manage button and click Add Recurring Sessions. And this is going to pull up a calendar, just like typically what you would see in a digital calendar. And it allows you to set the recurrence for that session. So the first session here is on the 10th at 4 p.m. I can tell the system to repeat this session every one week. You can change this to every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or you can change it to days or months. So whatever the recurring schedule is, you can go in here and update that accordingly. You can check off multiple days of the week if this is going to start happening, several days a week. But for this one, let's just say we're going to meet every week on Friday. And let's say we decide we're going to end this after 3 occurrences. So after 3 sessions, that recurrence is going to stop. So once I save that, it's now going to have that recurring session, and you'll know it's recurring because it has a link here underneath the session header that allows you to expand that and make any adjustments that you need to that recurrence. So if I click on the calendar and go over to March, you'll see here's my original session. And then here are my 2 recurring sessions that are going to follow it. Now, the great thing about recurrence too is that if you do have a need to edit any of these recurring sessions, you can go into any specific date. Let's pick the 24th, for example, and we can make a change to just that one meeting. So if I, for example, need to change the time to 3:50 instead of 4 o'clock, I can easily do that just by clicking on the date on that calendar. And you'll see now the session that's different is indicated by a little pencil mark on it, showing that it's a little bit different than the original. All right, and anytime you make a change there, you just want to click Save. And that is how you add recurrence to a session. All right, let's see if we've had any other questions come in. Yeah, once a meeting is concluded, is there a way to delete it from my video conference list right away? Yes, there is. So I'll show you. Once a meeting has ended, and I think to actually show you this, I would have to enter the meeting. And it's going to prompt me to open Zoom meetings. It'll give me an error if I do, just because we're already in a meeting webinar. So what I'll do is let's see if that came up. No, it didn't. Okay, so you have to actually connect to the session before it will allow you to do this. But again, under that Manage button, you would then see an option for Remove. So you could then just click Remove, and that will remove the session from your dashboard. All right. So continuing on from that, let's see, we covered, Schedule Next and recurring sessions. I'm going to toss it back to Sabrina to talk about some session-specific features.
Yes. So I'm about to share my screen again. I will speak a little bit about the Manage button menu. It's regarding the change host and session topics. Should be able to see my screen now. So I have a pre-scheduled session here. So when we go to the Manage button, you can now change the host. This is a new feature that was implemented last year. You used to have to delete a session and create a new one if you wanted to change the host, if the original host is sick or cannot make it to the appointment. So now you can just change the host. I just change it here to Dr. Ellie Coates. The participant will not be notified about this and can still join the original session where they received the email about it. So now you can see it is gone from our dashboard and it is now on Dr. Ellie Coates' dashboard.
Oh, and I'll just add to that. This is for organizations that have multiple hosts within the account.
Yeah.
So if you have, if you're the individual user on an account, then change host wouldn't apply because you wouldn't want to send your session off to someone outside of your organization. So just wanted to mention that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just scheduled another session real quick again so I can show you what else is under the manage button. So you can also add a topic to your session. This topic will only be seen by you or by people in your organization, but not by the participants. So here you can add, for example, first consultation or whatever you would like to add. Okay. And if you would add this to your Google Calendar, it would also appear on your Google Calendar as the meeting topic for this meeting. Talking about the Google Calendar, you can now sync your Google or Microsoft Calendar to Secure Video. It has to be first enabled for your organization, so only an account administrator can enable it. And then you would just go to your profile icon, click on your name, scroll down, and then you would just click on link Microsoft Calendar or link Google Calendar. I would like to point out the first time you sync it, it takes up to an hour until all your sessions appear on your Google Calendar or Microsoft Calendar, but then it will be immediately, once you schedule sessions, they will immediately show on your calendar. And Kate, could you maybe show real quick what it would look like?
Yes.
On the calendar.
Here we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this, you can see meeting topic, initial consultation, for example, you can see that on your calendar, but like I said, participants will not be able to see this.
Yeah, so if your participant uses add to calendar and adds that, they will not see the meeting topic. That is just internal to you or your organizational users. All right. Well, I want to be mindful of time. We are right at almost 30 minutes now, and I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A. So at this time, if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask about scheduling, options, different configurations in Secure Video, we would welcome the opportunity to answer them live for you. And then again, if there's something you would rather discuss offline outside of this webinar, Sabrina and I are happy to connect with our customers just to help them with configuration. And our support team is wonderful as well. So I will share some information on how to get in touch with support and then our email addresses as well. But for now, we'll just give everybody a moment. If you have any questions, we'd love to help you with them today. All right, looks like we have one. Can you please show how to use an e-document in real time with a patient? For example, signing a document. Yes, I'd be happy to. All right. And by the way, we also have, Sabrina and I did a separate webinar specifically about using e-documents. So that's something that's available on our YouTube channel. And I can follow up. And if you just want to ask support, we can send you a link to that whole recording. But yes, just in real quick terms, here we go. I will take this session I have here with St. Valentine, and we're going to go ahead. Actually, I'll start with just scheduling a new session. We'll kind of start from the beginning. So to add an e-document, you would just pick the date and time of your session. Click go. Go ahead and set up a session here. I'll use someone that I already have in my account. We'll just say Alex Smith. And what you would do is in your account, you should have, if you have e-documents set up, you should have your different document packets all configured here. In my demo account, I have one called a new patient packet. So I'll use that one just to show as an example. When you click save, you'll see any documents that are included in that document packet are going to stack up here at the bottom, and it will show the status of those documents in real time. So these are all documents that are assigned to the participant, Alex Smith, and they're all required pre-session, except for the last one, which is a survey, and that one's required post-session. So what that means is that any documents that are required pre-session, Alex would need to fill those out before he's able to click the join meeting session. Now, you can configure your options for e-documents to make documents either required or optional, just depending on how you would like that to be handled. So if we take a look at this on the patient side, I will just get to a screen where we can kind of look at what the patient's waiting room looks like. Anytime that after Alex is invited to his session, he would be able to click on his waiting room link and get to this page. So this is going to show all of the documents that he has assigned to him to fill out prior to the session. So he would just click submit. It's going to automatically load up that first document. It's a medical history questionnaire. So any of these can be configured with, check boxes. We have radio buttons for some of them. We can do open fields to if they want to, if you want them to just type in open-ended answers. And you can also set any of our questions to be required or optional. So the participant would fill that out. This document itself is set to capture signature by typing in their name. So for this, he would just type in Alex Smith and click submit. But when configuring your e-documents, you can also have it configured to not only have them type their name in, but also sign it either using their finger or their mouse. So I'll show you another form that has that. So the telehealth consent form is this one. And this one actually requires a mouse drawn signature as well. So he would read his consent form, type in his name, and then also use this mouse bar. See how good I can draw a signature with a mouse. All right. And then they could submit the document from there. And then, so as you can see, it keeps a list of what's been completed and what's still outstanding there for the patient, but also on the host dashboard, if I go back to Dr. Coates here, it does show in real time the status of those documents as they're completed. And so you can click on view at any time and see how your participant completed those documents or answered those questions. So I hope that gives just a brief overview of how that whole process works. But again, we have a much more in-depth webinar that we did a while back, and we can share a recording link with you if you'll just ask us for it. All right, looks like another question. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're most welcome. Any other questions out there? Michelle, how about any questions that you might have answered in chat that we could at least just mention? I know it's always helpful for me. Sometimes I may not have thought of a question, but if others ask it, then maybe someone else is wondering the same thing.
Someone asked if each patient received invites for each recurring session to RSVP.
Yes.
So I guess we could go over the way Recurrence creates new sessions.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll go back to the session with Han Solo here. So what happens is every night when the dashboard resets itself, this happens, what is it, Michelle, about 12 midnight Pacific time? Is that right? So the dashboard will reset itself for the following day. That is when it's going to create the next session in a sequence of recurring sessions. So we have our original one here on March 10th. And let's say we've had our first session on March 10th. It comes to be, after midnight on March 10th, this session is going to clear from the dashboard and the recurrence is going to automatically go ahead and create the next session. That is also going to automatically go ahead and send the invitation to your participant for the next week's session. So it's basically going to happen overnight after the initial session occurs. But yeah, you don't have to worry about sending the notifications or reminders. It all happens automatically through the system. That's a great question. Let's see. Yes, a recording link for today and past recordings. No problem. We'll get you hooked up with that. All right. I'll just give one more minute if anybody else has any questions they want to throw out there. We love to keep questions coming. All right. Looks like we are good on questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring our presentation back up here. Just a few more things that we kind of wanted to mention in closing today. One is our support resources. If you haven't seen it, you do have a support button at the top of your dashboard that has all the contact information and best ways to get in touch with support. It has our 24/7 phone number for help connecting to the session. This one we recommend using if you or your participants are having any trouble just getting connected and need someone to help troubleshoot that process. That number is a great resource for you to call. For configuration questions and anything specific to your account, we recommend either emailing support@SecureVideo.com, or if you'll notice down in the bottom right corner of your dashboard and with anywhere within the platform, we do have this support widget. So you can click that support button and it will launch into a live chat. And so we man that chat within business hours and do try to respond to inquiries very quickly. So you can either get in touch with us phone, email, or live chat, however you prefer. And also, just in closing, we did want to mention our referral rewards program. We are so appreciative that you took the time today to join us for this webinar. And hopefully you're having a good experience with Secure Video to the point where you would want to recommend us to a friend or a colleague. And if so, we just want to point out that we are offering rewards for doing so. So if you click on your profile icon in your account, you may have noticed there's now this $50 referral credit option. If there's someone that you would like to refer to Secure Video, please just submit their name and email address through this process, and they will automatically get an email saying that you as the host recommended Secure Video for them. But they will also get their first month of Secure Video for free just because you recommended them. And then if they become a customer and spend their first $50 with us after their first free month and they get their first $50 bill, then you will receive a $50 referral credit automatically on your account. So there's a little benefit in it for not only the person you refer, but for yourself, just to use that refer a friend. So please use that if you feel so inclined. We would really appreciate it. And then finally, just wanted to mention our next webinar series that we're planning on is for our relatively new feature called On-Demand Interpreter Services. So for those of you, I think it was about 30% on with us today, who said that they are having a need to include an interpreter in a telehealth session, Secure Video is now offering this on-demand service. It's an advanced feature, but we do plan on hosting for our next webinar a demonstration and more information about this feature. So please stay tuned for that as we keep this series going. If there's any ideas or anything that you'd like to share with us for things that you'd like to see us cover, we would certainly welcome that. But otherwise, we will let you get back to your day. Again, we'll send out the recording afterwards, but here's our contact information in case you'd like to get in touch with Sabrina or myself. And otherwise, we wish you the best and thank you so much for using Secure Video. We really appreciate you and appreciate your time today for joining. So. All right. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.